Everybody comfortable? Okay, spread out or come close. What? So just to say welcome. Welcome everyone. We're so happy to see you. We're so appreciative of everyone who is here, everyone who is online with us. Just different ways of being together. And very appreciative of those of you who have traveled, some from snowy lands, I hear, to come here. And, you know, it's just really nice to be together. So we've come together to do the practice known as Jit, also known as Luchen, offering the body by Jigme Lingpa. It's the first time we have done this type of practice as a community, and it feels like a very wonderful step to be taking together. As we'll be talking about over the weekend, it brings forward a number of gestures, contemplative skills that we have already been cultivating, and it takes us a little further with some of them. And we'll have more to say about how it blends in with the major themes and is part of the major themes of the cycles program that we're doing together. But for now, I think we'll just enjoy being together and open in our usual way with our kind Umze's help, the setting our motivation, maybe pause a little bit between each. So we are here together for a couple of days, and we'll give you some silent moments also to develop your motivation in your own way. After all, it's very personal. We have words that we sing together that join us together, and then you have your own way of expressing things in your own mind, and that is also important.
Okay. So we will start with the aspiration verses on the laminated sheet.
I think people will follow you.
Okay. And we'll also be jumping then to Great Blazing Bliss. May all beings always have happiness and its causes. May all beings always be free of pain and its causes. May all beings always be pain-free and live happily. May no beings ever cling to those near nor spurn those far. For as long as space abides, as long as the world remains, just so long may I be there, resolving all beings' pain. We'll rest with this for a moment. And we'll turn to Great Blazing Bliss. We'll do English tonight. It's on page 5 in the booklet. Oma Hum Ri, great bliss, blazing power, palace where wisdom ones no bliss and emptiness, blissful lotus ones with no wanting, Vajra sun great glory shines from there. True form Amitabha Dorje Lokesh, Lord compassion, passionate, Lotus, Lord master of world and beast, power Heruka outshines all things. Sangwa Yeshe Banja Barahi, Demsho Dizai, King great bliss treasure. My muse Rigzin rules all mudras, high-low dancing in bliss emptiness. Power wielding Dak and Daki host, you know seen and empty as the same. You dance your Vajra form, shakes the worlds, your laughing ceaseless speech rouse three realms. Red light rays suffuse all worlds in peace, stir and gather world peace essences. Grant the 2 feet our supreme desire, Vajra passion of your own heart mind. With great Vajra hooks and lassos you bind to great bliss all you know and see. Dance play in the endless, imagine it like sesame paws burst open with 3 roots power, God host vast array. Bless and grant as with respect I pray. For unhindered siddhi power in all feats high and low that I desire.
And then letting yourself release all efforting, release all push and pulling sensations from the past and from the future. And just really settle down. Harvey and I will sing the invocation. Blessings are being invoked through your aspiration, through your settling into that aspiration, and through our continuing together. Kyabda Gyawanam Tangyer Mepe Gandrin Sumden Chinshen Lama Che Rigzin Jurme Tuten Jatsola So Adep So Nyamlen Tarchin Shu. And settling into your sense of real contact with the support offered you from the center of the earth, directly beneath you, palpable through your contact with your chair, with your cushion. You can feel it. You don't have to think about it. That sensation, that ordinary, everyday, easily available sensation is also your direct path to the present moment, your wormhole to the present moment. So let yourself settle as you know how to do. Checking that your back is long, not stiff, but long, upright, just rising like a fresh shoot in springtime, rising from your hip area. And your crown is somehow connected with the apex of space, directly above, bottom of your spine. Could drop a plumb line to the center of the earth. You're connected there as well. So you're long and strong, and that means that the central corridor that runs through your body, especially from your do, deep in your belly, rising, coursing through your heart, your throat, your crown, open at the top, your central channel. And giving up as possible any thought or inclination of you're here to do something. Let that go. It will arise. But really you're here to be as you are. a vessel that is breathing in, breathing out, that is aware of every sensation of the inflow, the outflow, how it moves through your body, letting your belly relax, puff out as you inhale. And letting go completely as you exhale. Your body knows what to do. I should say your body knows how to be. Just a living expression of reality. That's what you are. Reality is moving through you. So you sense your breath, you sense that expression of reality. And your sensing is also an expression for reality. One great reality manifesting all of your experiences. This room, not just man-made, really an expression of reality. Reality which is intrinsically luminous, pure, and perfect. And here we are. There's nothing to do about any of this. It's just so. And you are just so. And relaxing into that being just so, already complete. Allow your senses to be alive with reality, feeling the flow of your breath, also alive with reality, expressing reality. This is not something for your mind to understand. It's something to relax into. And as you continue to settle, there may be a moment when you just very naturally let your attention ride with your in-breath all the way down to your deep belly, your do, dantian. And maintain awareness from there. You still breathe, of course. Your belly is still relaxed, filling with air. You're still an expression of reality. But you can feel a certain kind of presence of reality, perhaps, deep in your do. And again, it's not really something you can do, but you can allow as possible this relaxation, this dropping down, seated deep in your belly. And whenever you notice that somehow you've just started doing something, thinking about the past or the future, wondering this, worrying that, come back to the place where all of this arises from, your true home, just back to being. Letting go of the doing. Every kind of thinking is a doing. And it takes us away from the direct experience of simple presence. And you can notice for yourself the difference in the experience of when you are caught up in thinking, as we all are. There's a learning there. When you let it go, if only for a moment, perhaps there's something like a sense of freedom. Oh, no longer encumbered by that thought, that worry. So gradually you become able to discriminate more and more clearly in terms of your own experience, the difference between just letting be and open, clear, easeful manner. And what happens when you get tied up with thinking of any kind? So let yourself be still deep in your dough. And rising from deep in your dough, 4 fingers beneath your navel and 4 fingers in. The luminous blue channel, straight, luminous, shining. Rising to your crown. Open at your crown. Just like in Poa, those of you who have done that. And at a pace comfortable for you, let your channel rise through your crown. Rise toward the ceiling. Easily glide through the ceiling as high as you like. And you're not exactly doing anything, it just naturally does this. As soon as you are oriented to it being so. And your channel drops down also, gliding easily through your seat, through the layers of gravel and earth beneath you, just gliding down, easily arriving at the center of the earth directly beneath you. Easily, if you like, even continuing beyond that, maybe out the other side of this great globe. And do this at your own pace for another minute or so, at your own pace, bringing it back down to body size. If you like, expanding it again. Just to get more and more familiar as you have already been practicing with this central channel. Reminding your body, reminding your experience, here it is. It's a pathway. It's a pathway for your consciousness. So expand it, contract it. About 2 minutes to do that. Let your mind in this process, just naturally your awareness move up and down your channel so you kind of feel this pathway inside you. You can move your attention from the bottom to the top. And the door, the sky door at your crown, open to the vastness. And gently coming back to body size. It's a luminous pathway. And settling once again deep in your dough. You can even take your hand and see where 4 fingers down is from your navel. Even those of us who've been doing this for a long time, sometimes it helps to make it concrete. And then the same distance in. Kind of feels like your center of gravity. And settle down. Let your awareness just drop. We're so used to our attention pouring out of our eyes especially, but also our ears, our mouth, our nose. And now we're settling deep, deep into this actually very earliest part of the body that's formed in the womb. It's a deep place for us. A lot of settling is available there. But whatever you feel is perfect. Whatever you feel, and this is true in all of our practices. If you find yourself wishing it were something else, just notice that and let it go. Don't wish for anything, because it will interfere with your presence. So let your consciousness take the form of a white tigle, a bright orb, about the size of a pea, right there deep in your belly. glowing, luminous light filled with presence. Is presence. And in a few moments, we'll say together the syllable pet, which you know, many of you, most of you. And with that, send this orb, this luminous, pea-sized tigle or bright orb of your consciousness. It shoots through your central channel, this pathway you've just refreshed your sensitivity to. And out the door of Brahman, the sky door at your crown, it dissolves into space. And your pure presence, your Rigpa, and unobstructed space are utterly united. And you rest there for as long as you're able to rest there. Okay, we'll just do it once this time. So you're back deep in your belly. You know what we're going to do, but right now you're deep in your belly and consciousness the size of a pea. There, knowing it is there. It's going to shoot into space, passing through your central channel, out your crown. You can kind of, with your mind, mark the path right now so you know where it's going to go, because it's going to move fast. It's going to dissolve into space above your head, and then there'll just be presence unified with space. Come back down. Let's do it again. Let's actually do it twice more. And then we'll reflect on what occurred as you did that. And back down, just one more time. Usually we just do this once. We're practicing. And take a moment to notice what occurs as you do this. Maybe you have a sense that there's some connection with spaciousness. Even if it's very brief, it's worthy of noting. And also worthy of noting is then what happens. Generally speaking, there's something that may come and obscure the vastness unified with your awareness. Some thought, some worry, some wanting, some disliking, some, ooh, I shoulda. We're all familiar with this. And these are exactly the expressions that occlude our true nature, our reality from ourselves. So I'd like you to take a minute or two right now and identify for yourself something that you're familiar with, and it doesn't have to be your most egregious problem or most frightening, troublesome issue, but something that you can identify, that you know the feel of it. When it comes up, there's some kind of reactivity you want or you hate. You hate yourself, you hate someone else. Again, it doesn't have to be your most dramatic issue, because we want you to identify something that you can work with this weekend, just to learn how. So don't pick your hardest thing, but something that will be meaningful to you. And you're not going to have to tell anybody what it is. Make it as clear as you can for yourself. And especially, don't go into the story about it, but as much as possible, go into the feel of it, the lived experience of what this is. Ooh, when I see so-and-so, ooh. When I hear this, because since that happened, make it simple. What does it feel like? Maybe raise a finger when you feel like you've got what it is. Okay, a couple of people. Anything will do. Anything that you can identify will do. Okay, give you another minute. Those of you who already know what it was, just keep on it. See what it reveals to you about how it feels. Maybe it even is ready to talk to you, tell you something. Maybe it likes that you're paying attention to it for once, instead of trying to banish it, make it not there. Okay. So when in this practice we are talking about self-cherishing, holding to a self, you can use this very thing as an example. Because anytime you have an I want or I wish, any sort, there's an I there. And in the language of this practice, we're going to identify these as demons, devils. The devils that we speak of in this practice come from nowhere but yourself. And they attack no one but you. You just take a moment and feel, okay, I'm going to be in conversation with you. I'm going to feed you later on. And we're going to see what happens. And in closing this meditation, take a moment in your own way to make an aspiration that you will be able to follow through, that you will learn something that you will be able to use. A certain kind of, to whatever degree it feels comfortable for you, a certain kind of commitment to the process, to this practice that we will be doing. We sang it earlier. Yeah, we did. Kept that going on Tangi every day. Oops. Okay, let's do that.
So we're on page 12. Refuge in bodhicitta.
Now we know what we need refuge from.
In 3 real jewels, 3 root bliss-filled ones, channels, winds, bright orbs, this Bodhi mind, essence, nature, moving love mandal, until full Bodhi I seek refuge. Kunjok sunga deshe tsawa sun, tsalun tile rangjin jangjup sem, Ngo rangjin tuje gil korla, Changjub ningba bardu kyap suchi. In 3 real jewels, 3 root bliss-filled ones, channels, winds, bright orbs, this Bodhi mind, essence, nature, moving love mandal, until full Bodhi I seek refuge. Oh, like moons in water, sights deceive us. We ever roam bound in cyclic chains, so all may rest in their clear mind sphere. I raise Bodhi through 4 boundless states. Ho not so nang wachude tsun regi, korwa lugu gyundu kyambe dro, rang riga sel ying su ngel se chir, zeme shi ngang ne sem ke do. Oh, like moons in water, sights deceive us. We ever roam bound in cyclic chains, so all may rest in their clear mind sphere. I raise Bodhi through 4 boundless states.
Do the invocation again. Rigzin Jigme Lingpa So adep so nyamen charchin show. So the purpose of the Dharma, the purpose of the teaching, the purpose of our practice, as Rinpoche, His Holiness Dalai Lama have often said, is what? Is to overcome negativity, reactivity, in the traditional language of the teaching, to overcome afflictions, desire, hatred, ignorance, pride, jealousy, self-hatred, obsessive, compulsive freneticness. These are all things that are ways of expressing a sense of self. All of these are not in our system. All of these impinge on the expansiveness of space, which is our real nature. And so, from the perspective of ethics, of course, we want to act in a way that is, at the very least, not harmful, and ideally is helpful to others. Maybe the core existential question of the Bodhisattva really is, how can I help? We walk around with a lot of questions, and that may not be the one at the top of our minds, you know. What should I do for my career? But how can I help is a positioning, taking the position of this is what's important. Helping is important. Being a positive force in the world is important. Being a support for my friends and family is important. It's a bodhisattva, right? Wanting to benefit others. And the benefit that we can bring forth is limited to the extent that we are still cathected to our own self-interest, which we are. So we're not going to be embarrassed about it. That's the situation. If we weren't, we would be enlightened Buddhas already. And, you know, we don't know who in this room is such. But we're taking the position that we're practitioners. And all of you who are already enlightened will certainly be helping everybody else. And why is this the case? And the purpose of, when we speak about severance, what are we severing? Really, we are severing the root connection, the cathection, the hanging on to the sense of me-ness that we have explored in many ways together, and that is really the crux of the matter. If we can sever that, the famous example, if you cut the root of a tree, nothing grows anymore. You can spend a lot of time snipping off the branches, pruning, but the tree is still rooted in the ground, and it will still bring forth more and more and more and more. And so we, you know, as practitioners, as good citizens, we're always seeking, I think, everyone to optimize our behavior and try to be as good and kind and wise as we're capable of being. And that's very important. But now we're turning our attention to this niggling root, this holding on, this me, 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 me. And I think it's the fifth Dalai Lama who says, even deep in dream, it's like someone is, you, not someone, are shouting, I, I, I. So we want to recognize this, and we've said many times, and I will say again, that this is actually one of the greatest challenges in practice. Self-grasping, holding to self, making me the most important central thing in the world. We are not looking at these as abstract philosophical ideas. We are trying to touch into our own lived experience of that. When you're waiting for your Lyft or Uber, are they coming? Are they going to get here on time? They lost? There's some anxiety. Oh, I should have used the other company. Why isn't so-and-so picking me up? Right? That's not a non-virtuous thing. It's okay. But if you want to know what me, feels like, well, there's a little example. Who cares if Lyft comes in a timely way, or you're hot or cold waiting for it? You do. There's some sense of a me, right? This is not foreign to our experience, is it? So it's very important as we discuss these things, we talk about wisdom and primordial wisdom and all of these really elegant and important terms, that where we connect to this wisdom from is from our own experience, and you have that experience. You don't have to have studied for umpteen decades and memorized Sanskrit and Tibetan and then forgotten it in order to, right? The phone rings. Ooh, I hope it's so-and-so. Ooh, I hope it's not so-and-so. Ooh, I don't want to talk to them, right? It's a small thing. It's not a big deal. But it's a way to catch, do I feel one with the universe right now? Not exactly. I feel that this is coming in, and it's either something I want to grasp onto or I want to push away. As soon as we're in push and pull, which is like 99.99% of the time, I think, there's self. That's what it means. You wonder what it means? That's what it means. So we want to sever the root of that. And for this reason, the practice of severance is a practice fundamentally of the perfection of wisdom. To realize that the self, the me that we're holding on to, hey, by the way, where is it? Can you find it? Can you actually, it always says grab, but what exactly are you grabbing? Can you find something that you're grabbing? Is this yourself? And we've had, at least many of us have had these conversations for years, decades in some cases. And it's very important. This is the kind of Madhyamaka basis, or at least one way of doing Madhyamaka, middle way basis of these practices. We want to be aware that there is some kind of holding. That means we're not letting go. That we're not in a kind of open infinity of spaciousness, which is our reality, and we have talked about this in the last year or so in talking about Buddha nature. So everything you know about Buddha nature, your Buddha nature, that it's already there, that nothing could ever harm or impinge on it really, but it can be veiled from us. All of this pertains to this practice. And Majik Lepton says that, let's see where I have this. Basically, if we are in a state of complete spaciousness, that moment that we have perhaps, or that we somehow can get some sense of how that might be, not completely, of course, but some inkling, Just to be there, that's the practice. Then we don't have this kind of grasping coming forward. Then we are complete. We are done. We are in reality, and there's no problem. There are no problems in reality. But we get confused, and we lose this kind of wisdom perspective. So this is something that she has said in the treatise called Another Bundle, Jamgon Kongtrul's Sacred Teachings on Chi. It's the name of this text is in your booklet. This is on page 134. Once all fixation on concepts is eliminated, there is unborn nature, the original Buddha. That's it. You remember the story of the woman crying and laughing outside of Atisha's cave when he walks out? A beautiful story we've heard many times. We first heard it from Kizan Samba Rinpoche. Goes out one day and she's just weeping madly. Okay, he doesn't know what's wrong. He goes back in to meditate. He comes out again and she is laughing with such great delight. Remember the story? And he says, as any of us might, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Now she's a Dakini, of course. She's totally okay. She gets it, and she tells him, because beings suffer so endlessly in samsara in so many different ways, and we have studied all the ways in which we suffer by studying the sufferings of cyclic existence, the four thoughts. That means a lot, right? It's not an abstract idea, oh, they suffer. We know they suffer. We suffer from hot and cold, hunger and thirst, being in service, used and abused, or just being so happy we can't, we're just dizzy with delight and we can't make any real progress, right? These are the ways that we suffer. So she's weeping about that, but then she says, when I think of the fact that there's just a small error, just a little thing, just a little shift, and it all vanishes, I laugh and I laugh and I laugh. So this is lovely to hear every few years or months as we struggle on the path and think, what are they talking about? And I'm even making progress, and maybe I'm getting worse. Maybe I should just go to the movies. So this is what she's talking about. Once all fixation on or concepts is eliminated, there is unborn nature, the original Buddha. That's all it takes. Now here too, so this is important in this practice, particularly actually in the way that Asam Trikpa frames it. I'll say something about that in a moment. We actually just did it. But think for a moment. So our purpose as practitioners of the Dharma is to reduce and finally eliminate afflictions. Finally, how do we do that? By recognizing what's really true. And then afflictions actually have no place there. It's like you can't have, in the famous example of a jeweled island, there are no rocks. There just aren't. That's not what you find there. In a bed of clover, you don't find, my biology fails me here, my horticultural knowledge fails me. But anyway, in a bed of clover, you don't find thorns, if it's a bed of clover. So in reality itself, everything is complete. So we're looking to dissolve these kinds of these reactivities. The thing that you identified in our practice earlier is an example of what you can dissolve. And just to remind us all, this practice of dissolving is something you're very familiar with, right? It's one of the central tropes or themes or gestures of our practice. We do it in refuge. Guru Rinpoche sends down light, we melt into space. We're doing a Vajrasattva. Everything is lit up, melts into us, dissolve into the mantra, into the 4 letters, into the hung, into the tigle, into space. Why do we do that? We do it. I suppose you could say that that's also a form of jit, although it's never called that. But it is a part of our learning of what dissolution feels like. And as you know, especially if you've been practicing for a long time, the experiential spectrum of what can occur, even in those simple practices, is very, very great. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that much. Sometimes you enter a completely different dimension, maybe a wisdom dimension. So in this practice, we are seeking also to dissolve everything, and we particularly attend to the attachment that we have for our body. And if we think about it, probably whatever you identified as the thing that you are going to work with has something to do with your sense of embodiment. I can't resist certain foods. Well, they feel good. I dislike certain things. They don't feel good. And that not feeling good is probably not just an idea that you have. Well, I don't like it. But what happens when you don't like? Well, you get a little tense, maybe get wrathful. You lose your ground of being. You feel that there's something that you must do, so you lose that spaciousness at the very least. Does that make sense? So, having identified this, what we are looking for in this practice is to work with that and to keep returning to this spaciousness. She also says, all those who are alive now, that includes, you know who, you saw earlier, right? All those who are the people at the rodeo or the barbecue, whatever, you know, people in bars tonight, people out dancing, people home alone and sad, people in the hospitals, people just being born, people about to get married, everybody. All of those who are alive now also have no cause for getting to Buddhahood other than liberating fixation on its own ground. That's it. Dakini is laughing. Her sides are splitting. She's so delighted. Just liberate fixation. Oh, it sounds so simple. In a way, it is simple, right? But in order to liberate fixation, we have to know what it is. We have to know what it is in our experience. So that's why, again, we asked you in this first meditation to identify something that you can work with, so that you can have the experience of seeing how about it being liberated. So we're in the realm of the perfection of wisdom. We know, as we said on Tuesday night, and these last 2 Tuesdays were actually very relevant kind of ramp-ups for this retreat, and I'll probably repeat some of it, but if you didn't listen to it, as your time allows, you might like to. One thing that we said on Tuesday that is important, because when we talk about fixation, it's another way of talking about duality. Reality, that spaciousness, is not dual. As we have said, can't cut space in two. There's no subject-object in the wisdom realm. It's just an ocean of openness, of open presence. Easier said than done. And what we want to do is to become aware of what, in your experience, impinges on that presence, right? So maybe you have a moment when we come out of the Brahma opening, some sense of spaciousness, and I'm guessing that pretty quickly there's something like, oh wow, that was spacious, that was good. And you're already right? In subject-object. We can't help it. It's no blame. It's just to see. And that's why the path can take a long time, because this is very, very deeply ingrained in us. And the sense of self that we have has a lot to do with the body. So in this practice, once we've become this enlightened being, Tromanakmo, the fierce lady, the word is black, but when you see her, can we show her? Sorry. She's in your book anyway. It's this blue-black that sometimes you can see like in a clear autumn sky. It's like almost dark, but it's not quite dark. It's not, and the blue of it is somehow an invitation. See how she is? She's especially you see it in her midriff. So we're going to become her. She's powerful. Nothing's going to mess with her. She is reality. Okay, she is reality. What does reality mean? It means your consciousness mixed with space, not just space, but the Dharma Dhatu, what we call basic space or stainless space or the real realm. That's what you are when you are her. You don't need your flesh and blood body anymore. You're in a position to offer it. And that's what we do ritually speaking. To overcome the attachment to the body, because the body is not you. If it were you, we would have rituals emphasizing the body, and we would sing "Me, Body," you know. But that's not the thing. Now, we have prepared for this. We have done, many of you know the Green Tara practice. We have done Shito together. We have done Poa together. We did Guru Rinpoche practice. Many of you are doing Ngondro. You all have a lot of experience of becoming a being who has a body of light. That's not your body anymore. In those practices, we don't make a big point of throwing away looking at our corpse and melting it down to nectar. We don't do that. But I just want to say that this is not such a foreign principle to you already. Or even just in sounding Om, right, and becoming a body of light that we do all the time. You're leaving your ordinary body behind to your own experience to some degree. So this is not such a leap. It's a bit of a leap. But in principle, we have been practicing since day one to divest ourselves of utter cathextion to identification with our own body. Now we do this to the hilt. We arise as her. Now there's different kinds of instructions on how to arise as her. And Majik Lupton herself says there's a way to do it with and without support. What we did, we started the process of rising without support, really, or getting to this place of just being unified with space, our conscious unified with space. And this is something that Adzom Trukpa emphasizes. It's not quite as emphasized in the way that either Patrul Rinpoche or Khetsen Sambo Rinpoche talk about it, but Adzom Trukpa in his Lamp Lighting the Path, which we're translating, have been and will be translating for quite a few years, I think. But in any case, in his chapter on so this is Adzom Trukpa's kind of Words of My Perfect Teacher, as you know, is a commentary on Jigme Lingpa's foundational practices, right? And Adzom Trukpa also wrote a commentary on Jigme Lingpa's foundational practices. And you know we're very related to Adzom Trukpa. I won't go through the whole family genealogy right now, but he's part of our family. So he says, very beautifully, well, he says to practice this is easy. We cherish, this is generally said, this part about the main thing we cherish, what do you cherish more than your own body? And that's kind of the last, okay, take away my things, but not this. So that's the thing we grasp at the most. It is the root of whatever grasping you identified as something that you're going to work with this weekend. And what he says to do is what we did, to imagine that your consciousness is down here, the size of a pea, and it moves up your central channel and out the Brahma door and just space, right? Just melting into space. And stay there for a while. So tonight, because that seems to be a special feature of Adzom Trukpa, at least in my experience, way of teaching it, because we are doing this through the lineage of Adzom Rinpoche, as you'll see in some of the prayers that he has added in for us, I wanted to emphasize that and do that, and we will do it as part of our practice. And then there are a couple of different ways where one would actually become and imagine that you are her, that you are Trimo Nakmo. In melting into space in that way, in your awareness being present throughout space in that way, we overcome, it is said in the text, the demon of death. That sounds good. How does that work? Well, you can't kill space, and you can't kill the wisdom that's unified with space, so this is a deathless state. And in fact, for those of you who have done Shito practice, or you have studied for some time, you know that at the time of death, we seek to recognize, to be present to our real nature, which is in fact the union of awareness and the reality realm, the Dharmadhatu, basic space, our real wisdom, our primordial yeshe, true enlightenment, true awakening. So then there's no dying. The body dies. We don't die. The real being that we are, in this view, does not die. So, in becoming acquainted with this sense of unification with spaciousness, we overcome the demon of death, it is said. And one of the advantages, so why even imagine yourself as Troma Nakmo, you might ask? Why not just space out? Well, we're beings, and we relate to beings. And also, and this is just my sense, and you can see what your sense is, there's something about, reality is tremendously powerful. It's tremendously creative. It's invincible, invulnerable, vajra, adamantine. And it seems very helpful to become a being who expresses that wisdom, diamond-like, vajra-like, immutable, invincible wisdom state. It's an expression. It's an expression from reality. just like all experience is an expression from reality. And we see her, she's blue, black, like the night sky. The night sky that goes on forever. A sense of wonder, I think, that we humans naturally feel when we look at the night sky, and there's some quality about that color. It's not light, but it's not dark. It's a very deep, we call it deep blue. There's something very deep about it. Deep blue sea. For our species, at least for many thousands of years, apparently earlier cultures did not see blue, some say. But in any case, we do. And the sky is blue. You know, it's for us a very evocative expression of infinite expansiveness. So we become her. It's like we become a piece of sky, except we've got some arms and legs and, by the way, kind of wrathful. Very powerful. And we know that the two solvents of addiction to self are wisdom, which we are addressing by identifying our sense of grasping and then working with that. And the other thing that dissolves self-grasping is compassion. And so we are making offerings of our body. We shoot out of our body, the body falls over, we grab it, put it in a pot, boil it in your imagination, right? Cleanse it into nectar. Ritually we do this. This is how we'll do tomorrow and for the rest of the retreat. We'll do it quite a few times, so you get used to it. But this is basically what we do. And we offer it. Who do we offer it to? This is also very important. We have said that a lot of what practice is cultivating relationships. When we cultivate bodhicitta, when we cultivate compassion, we're cultivating, you don't cultivate compassion in the abstract, you cultivate it in relationship to friends, enemies, and neutral persons, right? You're familiar with that practice. We cultivate equanimity, we think of people that we really like, we think of people that we really don't like, we think of people that we couldn't care less about, and we try to even out our lived experience of them so that we don't go into reactivity. Because when we go into reactivity, we go into self-grasping. So to the extent that we have cultivated equanimity, and we have discussed this many times over the past years, we learn something about the spaciousness that is available to us in our being. If, as we become more free of reactivity, we become more spacious. We become more flexible. We become less like Groundhog Day, doing the same thing always in response to the same cues. When we do this practice, we make offerings out of love and respect to those who are known as the high guests, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, our teachers, the protectors, the Dharma protectors, the great beings, enlightened ones. We offer out of respect and love. So that means we have a relationship. We feel we have a relationship with this. And then there are many other people who, like us, are subject to all of the whims of cyclic existence and suffering, and we offer them nectar also to cure their afflictions out of compassion. So in the process of doing this practice, we create a relationship, strengthen our relationship of love and respect for the high guests, compassion, and offering to the low guests. And since we are Drolma, we don't need our body anymore. We've got a much better situation than a mortal body. And we offer this, and we make connections. And finally, everybody's happy. Everybody's satisfied. Party. Everybody's delighted. And everything dissolves into space. And we enter into that space that is already freedom from, that is already what Majig Lupton described as the unborn nature that comes about when all fixation is eliminated. Severance. We're cutting at the root, our own. It's not abstract, like your, some particular thing that hooks you, as we say, snags you. I'm going to cut that. Going to cut it by making offering, making peace, you might say, with whatever it is. So I'm going to stop here and see where you're at. What occurred, if you'd like to, without revealing what it was, just if you have a question or want to say anything about the practice of shooting out, because that's how we begin. So you can see already that this is an echo of poa practice, right? You have some of your other practices. This is an important channel, an important pathway. We use it in a number of different practices, and so we use it here. So any questions or, yeah. Jennifer, you'll need a microphone. We haven't looked at the book yet, okay? I wanted to lay the ground before we do that. We will recite it tomorrow. You have a mic for Jennifer?
Hi.
Hi.
I was just curious, like what she was holding and wearing and things like that, but maybe you'll talk about that later.
She's holding the standard things. Let's hold that for now.
Yeah.
Kids and Selma describes it quite clearly, I believe, and also in Words of My Perfect Teacher.
Yeah, okay.
And we can come back to it if you wish. But for now, I'd rather just hear kind of what's going on with people. Yeah. Nothing? Yes. Pam.
I have a request. Anyone using the microphone, please hold it really close and angle it toward your mouth, because otherwise people online will not hear you.
Your act of compassion is to hold it, Harvey says, like an ice cream cone. Pam. Okay. So Pam and then Teresa.
At the risk of being excessively self-disclosing and excessively literal, what about those of us who are in recovery from body hatred?
Yeah. So then that's a thing, right? That is.
Elaborate the question a little bit more.
Do you want to say more about that?
Well, again, I realize that this is it's a very literal way of being with the practice, but it's one thing to give away one's beloved body and something very different to kill off something that seems problematic or burdensome.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody is feeling the body is problematic or burdensome, is there even a little bit further you want to ask about the practice and that particular personal perspective?
Well, I feel like this is getting very personal, but it's been most of my practice life has been largely a function of developing a certain amount of self-acceptance, which has a complicated relationship to me.
Right. So that's a really important discrimination that you're offering, actually. Let's see. So one way from this perspective, perhaps, to look into it is that body hatred is itself a kind of demon that you would like to be free from. So, and that would communicate that this is not what we're furthering, right? Body hatred. Body hatred is as much of a self-grasping as body cherishing. So possibly it would be meaningful to see that as, one of the demons that you were feeding. It's a little bit like, in Buddhism, and I know you know this, and Harvey talks about it a great deal and may say more about it now, we always talk about wanting to be free of an erroneous sense of self. And so the question comes, well, what if I've never managed to even have a healthy sense of self? Well, then that's not the practice for you right now, right? Because, as Harvey has written about, the healthy sense of being able to, look people in the eye when you talk to them and just kind of go about your business in the world, we are all for that. Absolutely. That's not what we're talking about. So in a somewhat similar way, this practice is not about hating your body. It's not about hating anything. It's about identifying what in your particular configuration right now in this life, at this time, obstructs your own capacity for freedom and joy. And that's what we want to loosen up. Does that make sense? Okay, go ahead.
These are profound questions. I just wanted to hear kind of the exact place that you were thinking about it in terms of any image of who we are is static. And to the extent that, and it is also the case that some people don't even have an image of who they are. And it is the case that developmentally you actually have to have a sense of who you are before you can work with giving up an image of who you are. If you don't really have a pretty reliable sense of a self-image, in many respects, Buddhist practice would probably be really antithetical. So there's one whole issue in terms of some sense of coherence of a self-image over time and space that most individuals have some of that. And that becomes a kind of hindrance to true nature, which is free of any kind of image whatsoever. So then there's a question of, well, what if the self-image or the body image is, let's say, frozen in a kind of hatred of self? And so that's a particular kind of image. And it certainly is the case that I think that somebody who had that kind of self-image could hear about a practice like this and think, oh, great, I get to imagine killing myself. And that's what I've always wanted to do pretty much anyway. That would be a major pitfall in understanding, though it could occur. And, so you brought up, me, and the issues of self-acceptance. There's really a kind of need for a certain kind of sensitivity about who each of us is and what our particular issues are and what we're struggling with. And it may be that a lot of us in the West, maybe we don't struggle with something like pride the way that a lot of the traditional material talks about pride, and we may not even struggle with me in the way that it's often written about. But if there's attachment to me as a scoundrel, that's a kind of toxic attachment. And if we could identify that I'm really bound into a sense of myself as a worthless piece of scum, then that self-image is worthy of being given up. We're not encouraging in this practice for people to end up hating themselves or despising themselves or wanting to harm themselves. We're really talking about a kind of very subtle issue of being identified with particular self-images or body images. And it's the attachment, it's framed in terms of sacrificing the body, but the more we think about it and the more we really contemplate it, it's the attachment to any particular body kind of image, an attachment to any kind of self-image that obstructs the true nature, because that's what actually, as Anne is reading about, this fixation is giving up. The fixation is what this is all about. And so it's a kind of, does this particular process, if we understand that we're really sacrificing our fixations with our particular sense of ourself or our particular sense of our body, can we see it in those terms? And I think it's very, very important for us to see it in those terms, as opposed to, in a way, of course it's portrayed and we're cutting their head off and we're putting our body into the skull and we're making ambrosia. It's a very, very concrete image, but I think we need to understand what's the image trying to get at, and it really is trying to get at a fixated sense of selfhood. And that could be, I've got a grand body, I've got, aren't I looking great? Or, I've got this horrific body, it's a male body or it's a female body, I've got a penis or I've got a vagina, or I want one or the other and I don't have the other. It could be anything that really is pretty intense. But it's not the facticity of our bodies as much as what we are, how we are stuck in a particular attitude towards our body, towards ourself, towards our identity, that we're in every form of practice trying to work with. So generosity is a very soft manner of dealing with holding on to things. Ethics is a soft way of giving up holding on to things. This is a kind of powerful, visionary manner of working with holding on to things in a certain way. But I do want to stress it's the holding piece that, she's not saying, she specifically says in that quote, when we're free of fixations. She's not saying when we're free of our body. She's saying we're free of fixations. And for some of us, being fixated on my body kind of is terrible. I wish I didn't have this particular body. That's a fixation. And so in some ways, the body whose head we're cutting off of is probably more appropriately described as the metaphoric image of what a fixation about the body would look like. And you're transforming that fixation into something wonderful and beautiful. And in a sense, it's similar to what happens in the Vajrasattva practice. We're taking stuff that's coming out of our body and transforming it. It's a changing. It's not so much the material, it's our own fixation with we think stuff is gunk and now it's beautiful. It's really working with how we are stuck on our ideas of things. And so it's a very powerful question. And, nobody should share anything that feels uncomfortable. But I think what you have shared speaks to this whole issue of, yes, many of us have a lot of ill will towards ourselves, whether it's to my emotional patterning, to my work history, to my relationship history, to my body, to what parents said about my body or did to my body. And I think it's important to understand that the frame of this practice is a compassionate, wisdom-based orientation to dissolving those obstructive holdings that don't allow us to move into a complete sense of freedom and spaciousness. And certainly thinking I've got a sucky body is a big obstruction to moving into spaciousness. And it would be within that understanding of I'm giving up the idea of a sucky body. I think that's the juice, or that would be the perspective I would be pursuing this practice if I was working with that specific issue personally, as opposed to the kind of in a way, coarse vision of, I'm taking this body and I'm killing it. I think it's really, we have to understand it's metaphoric, it started metaphoric, it is metaphoric, and its power is metaphoric. And we have to, in our personal instances, apply the metaphors that are meaningful for us. And if the metaphor of my body is a body of a fixation on a negative image of a body, and I'm going to take that, I'm going to give that up, and I'm going to transform that into a beautiful thing, which I can then offer to high guests and low guests, and then the whole shebang is going to just dissolve into space. I think maybe we can experiment. Maybe that would be a meaningful ballet.
Can I ask a somewhat related question?
Sure.
To the extent that, I'm a student of somatic psychology.
Yeah.
And to the extent that one views and cultivates the body as a source of wisdom, and in fact, the repository of the unconscious, how might one hold this practice from that perspective?
Well, I'm glad that we had a conversation that we had the other day, and I'm not going to reveal the contents of it. But, and there's a lot in what you said. Even people who do somatic work will use that somatic work. There are really two things, and as you say, somatic may be used for an entree to certain emotional and unconscious experiences. But also, the body can sometimes be used as an entree to kind of spacious openness. And I'm not sure that I think that I would want to put this practice, I think when we're doing the central channel and we're moving the sphere of light of our consciousness into space, that's actually a very specific kind of somatic practice, both the channel practices and the movement of consciousness into space. I don't know that I'm prepared at this point to go further in terms of trying to tie it in or not tie it into somatic practice as such, aside from saying we're both very, very supportive of people being aware on how any practice impacts them in their mind, feelings, and body. And if people are doing these practices and are noticing something coming up, then it's very, very important to just be aware of that. At the same time as we're doing the imaginative practice. I mean, Dzogpa Chenpo means great completeness, and ultimately we're not trying to push anything away, we're not trying to hold on to anything. All is experience. And if there are things that are coming up in our bodies, we want to be aware of that. At the same time, this is a very specific liturgical, ritualistic, imaginative experience. And so we encourage people to go through the process of doing the practice, and if things have come up with either our thoughts, our emotions, or our bodies, take some time with yourself to process it in a way that makes sense to you, whether that includes just sensing it and being with it, seeing what further comes up. It might include journaling, it might include a conversation with a spiritual friend. So again, that's a rich question, but I think I can only go so far with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a slight add-on on this, we'll go to Teresa, and then I think we'll close for the evening. Really, especially probably for someone like yourself who is so somatically learned, the sense of holding to self, or is itself also a somatic experience. So you are actually working with somatic experiences no matter what you're doing. How do you know that you have this thing that you need to, that impinges on you, that it's desire or hatred? I mean, there's some somatic analog of that. How do you know when you're spacious or not? If you manage, you leave your body and then you melt into space, and I mean, you feel that in your body. I mean, so all of those skills are useful for this practice, I would think.
I would just add that, we talk about this a lot, and Anne is working on a research project where sometimes it's called seeing to being, sometimes it has other names, but the way that wisdom arises in our experience, it's always present in our experience, it's just we're not aware of it. But wisdom is a kind of being state. And to the extent that we are more open in our bodies and more friendly with the full range of our experience and our feelings and our sensations, in some ways it's easier to allow a being state to be known. And to the extent that we're constricted and very, very oriented towards dualistic thinking, which is often pointed as a bugaboo in the tradition, it's kind of hard to even get a whiff of what is a being state. So somatic and the body, to the extent that it's open and sensitive, it's not that you exactly know primordial wisdom with the body, but it's pervasive of everything, including our bodies, feelings, and mind. And to the extent that our bodies are a bit more open, it's a little bit more easy, I think, to know what spaciousness is sensed like. On to Teresa.
Would it be appropriate to ask for maybe just an example of, each person is identifying a problem or a challenge or a fixation and then offering the body to dissipate that? Maybe you could give us an example of a type of fixation or challenge or problem that someone would have and how the offering the body works to dissipate that?
If you're obsessed with a certain person, for example, a boss, a partner, an ex, a wanted partner who isn't one yet, right? We have these experiences. So that would be an example. If you can't bear it when the mail arrives 5 minutes late from its scheduled time, that's something you could look into. It could be. What do you mean, what would it look like?
In terms of the process of the...
Is that what you're asking?
So that would be an example. What would you offer your body to?
Well, that's what that'll be the ritual that we do tomorrow. So when you are offering to the lower beings, you're also offering, some of these are the devils that are your own, whatever that problem is could appear as a kind of being, whatever that looks like to you. And you would, as part of the ritual, after you've become Chomanakmo, and you would melt your body into nectar. There's a ritual way to do that. We do that with Oma Hung. And then you would go with a skull cup and give them nectar, for example. You would imagine that you're feeding them, you're offering them, and that somehow this, when you're nice to somebody, sometimes they don't bother you as much. They just, that sort of calms down. So it's kind of like that.
Yes, so
it might not happen in one session.
It's using imagination to give form to, it could be something like that aspect of myself, that part of myself that, let's say, hates my body. So, it's in your audience of receivers of ambrosia, and it's the only limitation is your own imagination as to what that part of yourself would look like, or the part of me that is so upset when somebody comes 2 minutes late. What does that part look like? And really, it's...
And what does it feel like?
And what does it feel like? And there's, in a way, an imaginative relationship between oneself, you could say, in one's best, most generous, wisest self, offering solace to one's most cranky self, and appreciating that your cranky self needs some solace. There are many things going on in modern psychotherapeutic practice that interestingly overlap with this kind of model, and two things that can be mentioned. Many of you are aware that Sultan Leone has written a very, very interesting book that kind of frames the practice in that very, very significantly, in looking at that kind of the psychological frame of that. And there's a whole world of practice called internal family systems, where people will work with parts of themselves and parts of their family of origin, imaginatively, but also internally. There's this part of me that wants to beat me up. And, we have conversations then between our parts. And so we're not trying to convert this into a mere psychological exercise by any means, but there is elements of psychological richness in it that one can make use of. And imagine, I've got this difficult part, that, I've got to get to the baseball game on time, and if I don't get there, you might even imagine somebody wearing a baseball hat, with cleats and really eager to get to the baseball game, but, need some ambrosia to calm down. Soothe. it's helpful. So again, compassion and kindness. You know, it's a loud, noisy practice, but it's really a kind, compassionate. It's kind of ferocious compassion. It's like, here's some calming, here's some soothing, here's some wisdom.
Because the ritual space that is created is quite beautiful once we learn how to use our drums and bells and melodies and so on. So that is kind of like a holding canopy for all of whatever inner gunk might be coming out. And one of the things that distinguishes this, once there's some conference, I think it was a psychologist was saying something, at a conference with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and he was talking about the mind and the brain and so on. And then he used the word emptiness or selflessness. And His Holiness interrupted him immediately. He said, "Oh no," he said, "that's Buddhist business." So, you know, I think where we segue into the core of things from the Buddhist perspective is that we are using these various specific instances, which are very important to address, which definitely have psychological ramifications for us. And, you know, we are psychologically oriented beings, so addressing that is very important. And then we are looking finally to get to the root. You know, there's some kind of generic gesture of holding to me that actually undergirds all of these. And that in this tradition is called as, it's holding to self. It gets translated in many of these texts as the demon of inflation, which isn't one of the 4 demons that's specifically mentioned in the ritual, but it's basically the me, you know, whether me terrible or me good, as Nagarjuna famously says, it's still a form of pride, any kind of holding to self. So that's where we move into maybe Buddhist business, you know, as far as the core thing that we're actually cutting is that gesture. That help them. Yeah, all great conversations, yeah. So some of you have traveled. Oh, Simon, is it short? You wait till tomorrow? Or is it short? Yeah? Is that okay? All right. Can anybody, does anybody have to say something they have to say, or you can't sleep tonight? No. Then that would also be something you could look at. Okay, thank you. Lasso, a closing, and the book. Did the book go around? Thank you. Do bring your bells, and if you are getting drum or have one, bring tomorrow. Or just tell us. What is it? Randy Wallet. Just Randy.
So we're on page 22. We'll start with sharing the merit. By this good may I swiftly once become a great guru, lead all beings, everyone, to reach to that very ground. In all lives may I good Lamas meet, never part and rich in Dharma be, complete all grounds past good qualities, swiftly attain the Dorje Chang state. Able teacher, treasure, Julang Chen, holder of his teaching, Jigme Ling, peerless Lama's words until world's end, we here think, meditate your teaching. We flip the page, we'll do the long life prayers. In a pure land ringed by snow mountains, source of bliss and benefit for all, Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chen Rezi, lotus feet please stay hundreds of years, fill vast space with your activities. Om Swasti, flawless refuge sources give blessings, teacher, protector, kind Dharma Lord, Gyurme Tupten Gyatso wondrous good, lotus feet ever, deeds everywhere. So anyone who can join us in saying Jetsama's prayer by memory, sorry we don't have it printed in the book yet. Om Swasti, through all infinite Buddha's truth power, revered Taras Tulku Jigme Wang, sublime Sherab Jutsu Tulku's play, please long remain your deeds everywhere. And we're back in the booklet, page 27. Namo Guru, glorious wise K, bright sun and kind song, now that your work here has subsided, please think of our pain, sad suffering, we pray you quickly take form again. Om Swasti, Anne and Harvey, like the waxing moon, may your life and merit flourish grow. Through the threefold skillful pundits' deeds, live long benefiting all you meet. By the true power of two Vajra truths, 3 jewels, 3 roots, Buddha's compassion, faithful Sangha and aspiration, may this prayer be realized at once. Now we're going to do a little bit of a dance. Page 32, Prayer for Dawn Mountain. May there be a great fine new temple, great seat for all high practice learning, which having spread in all directions, male and female yogis everywhere, practice and further the teachings there. Now we will say the protector prayers. Is that right? Yeah. So, page 31, we have the Nyingtik prayer first.
Somebody messed with my Vajra.
Really?
No, they took it, my Vajra. This isn't mine.
Someone took your Vajra
Yeah.
from your table?
Yeah. This isn't my Vajra. May not even be my bell. It's not my bell either.
What? Yes, please. Can you? Oh, very good. Okay. Huh? Yes.
Om Beldene Kazati Dang Dang Sum Japcha Krahula Ekpaso Nitik Nyambo Den Sum So Dam Zi Duzi Dorma Pul Meltra Dak Choe Tinle Maya Duk Om Beldene Kazati Dang Krahula Dam Chen Dorje Ekpaso So Dam Zi Duzi Dorma Jennifer, you want to light the candle, please?
So we'll read the blessing on the bottom of the laminated sheet. With all of you in mind, we light this lamp of clarity. May the glow of love, wisdom shine within us, everyone, till we all rise forth born in one enlightened mandala.
So we are holding all beings, and along with them in general, in particular, Tina in the Bardo, Natalie Levinson in the Bardo, Nikki Clements, Manuela, Jenna Wood, Betty Bradford in the Bardo, Nancy Hirsch Martin in the Bardo, Ryan Toddler Care, Elizabeth, Mark, Ted, Dana and Father, Emma Ong, beings caught in Syrian civil war, David Ellsworth Bale and the Bardo, Camachos, Mike, Mary Scott, people who walked at Houston Women's March, Kaisu, Corons, Carousel Community, Scott, Sarah, Mary Huber, Elsa Vicari, Heinz and Astrid, Edith, Zoe Johnson, Alexandra Johnson, Greg Johnson, Judy Berger, Serious Leg Surgery, Kim Johnson, Dorothy, Ned, Ansi, Anna and the children, Selma, Wiss and the Bardo, Sonia's dad in the Bardo, Rick's dad in the Bardo, Rebecca, Esther, Connie, Arlie, Tonio, Andy, Rachel, Bardo, Mercedes, Macy, Graciela Martinez in the Bardo, Charlotte, Ed, Roxanne, Marla, Karen, Barbara, Dick, Tracy, Phil, Bardo, Hilton, Tom, Tam in the Bardo, Chito, Rosemary, Anthony, Greg, Carrie, Will, Randy, Lois, Dory, Stroll, Zubedia, Maredia, Tio Tu, Panda Tu, May, Uyen and family, Tien and Lan, Kuyen and family, Jane and family, Norzom in the Bardo, Gabriel G in the Bardo, Nick Martin in the Bardo, Burrell, Neil, Ted, Vasuda and Palash, Uncle Chacho, Gyatso, Vatana, for Rihanna and fertility, for Skype, for Brooke, Alice, Donna and Michael, Sarah, Nora, Barry, Leela, Stas, Cheryl, Matty, Forrest, Christine, Kevin, Janet, Andis, Mother, Son, Sandy in the Bardo, Ed in the Bardo, Simone's mom, Randy Wallet, Ed Shoemako in the Bardo, Carrie Shoemake, Max Panzer, Michelle Panzer, Nancy Ware Cutler, those from recent school shooting in the Bardo and those present and loved ones, all suffering with pain and affliction, the lonely, Mary O'Byrne, Andreas R.
Have a good night's rest. See you in the morning.